You know, the summer in anime is all about hanging out with your friends, going outside, maybe touching a little grass, a lot, things like that. The spring of youth, it's summer, but the springtime of youth. And I spent my summer inside in my room like I have every summer, watching anime. I actually don't know how to follow up with that. I mean, I was gonna go. I'm not sure if I should be like I'm the coolest fucking guy ever, or if I should be I'm a fucking loser. Because I mean, I could go either one, and it would be equally unfunny. Point is, it's summer roundup time, baby. Today I'm making an effort to speak from my diaphragm because I've made a mistake in like the past 17 roundups where I've spoken from my throat, and now that I know these consistently go for like 2 hours. I'm gonna try a little harder to speak in a way that doesn't hurt my throat. So, pretty good season overall. A lot of really good stuff. Pretty solid stuff. There's also quite a bit of worthless stuff. Maybe worthless is a little dramatic, but stuff that was like I could have gone without. Knowing that it existed and also having completed 12 plus episodes of the anime, or maybe 10 depending on what you are. I've also decided that there's like kind of two purposes to doing these roundups. One of them would be maybe you out there watching you saw an anime this season, you were like went on the MAL summer 2024 thing or whatever season, and you're like, oh, this looks interesting, but I'm not sure if I should go for it. Maybe I'm not sure if I should watch it. I'll tell you if I think you should watch it. If you should go back and watch it, even though it's already done, not airing anymore, I'll tell you if it's worth going back to watch. And also, it's the second purpose would be to look back at these shows if you have seen them and either complain or gas them up. So, because there's also going to be a lot of like, but that's part of it too, I guess. I don't spend a lot of time on the S. So, first on the docket, while I scroll up in my notes, is Roshidere. Alya sometimes hides her feelings in Russian. I don't have much to tell you. You probably already haven't heard. That's what I was going for. This is a delightful little romance. I think this, going forward as an anime community, whoever you are, wherever you live, whatever kind of anime you like, this should be the gold standard of like romance anime, of this style going forward. Like it does everything it needs to do. A whole lot about it is appealing with not a lot of caveats to that. Like it's very simple. It's simple in concept and then also simple in execution. So it just works really well on just about every level. And I appreciate it a lot for that. Like there's no weird harem elements to this really. Aside from the sister, I guess. But it's just like this delightful little show where the main character, and I'm gonna remember his name. Hold on. Kuze, Masachika, where Masachika and Alya are just like kind of flirting a little bit, but they're working together for an express goal, and the goal is established as the show goes along. Like the concept is immediately established upon the first episode, and you immediately understand why it's appealing, right? It's just bam, right there. You understand exactly what you're gonna get going forward, and then as the show develops and builds on itself, the two establish a goal, right? So they're establishing that Alya wants to be a student council president, and Masachika is going to use all of his wits and wiles to get her there. So, and that's exactly what you get going forward. Like it just builds and builds upon itself while still keeping that like kind of light, very fun sort of feeling it had since the beginning. Just seeing the main two interact is almost always delightful and really fun. So as far as slice of lives go, this is up there with the best in my opinion, especially like romance stuff. It's not gonna like drag you on some dramatic fucking tirade, like dramatic garbage, like angles or anything like that, like over dramatic garbage. It's simple, it's fun, it's light, it's really sweet and cute. I just don't have much to complain about. And even I think the side characters do add to the overall, like, they add, almost all of them add something to the just either to the dynamic of between all the characters, or like just to the like the narrative of Alya trying to be student council president. Like, I think what's her face, Hasegawa's character, I'm gonna remember her name, Sayaka, is a refreshing presence, because she's like in a different way than usual, right? Because she's like taking everything super seriously. Everything makes sense, and even I like the way they build backstory with Masachika and even Yuki as well. I see her name now. And Alya, like they have backstories that like make sense given what we know about them. Like it helps contribute to the characters that had already been established. So it's just really well done from top to bottom, in my opinion, and even the visuals aren't really half bad. Like, you can tell the people who storyboarded this, they cared, right? It wasn't just some throwaway stuff. A lot of the storyboarding was like, they used visual storytelling. It was good. So, good stuff. So pretty much, like, all the characters pretty much add something. It's like got all of the fan service-y notes you could want from a show like this. It doesn't ever get like too overbearing with the fan service or anything. Like, it's got a nice balance there. I think the designs of the characters are nice. Like, it's got it all. So if you're looking, like, I'm sure you've seen a gazillion clips on Twitter or whatever social media you use for a slice of life. I think it is very strong. So I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that all of its praise isn't deserved, because for people who really do like slice of lives, and that's not me, for those kinds of people, this may be like one of their favorite shows. So if you do like this kind of thing, it is definitely worth the watch, even in my opinion, as someone whose favorite manga is One Piece. Moving on. Okay, next up is the Elusive Samurai. I really liked this one. Big surprise, it's a jump manga. Of course, I liked this one. It feels like a Saturday morning cartoon for Japanese kids. Like, it's got all of the goofiness, the various types of different gimmicky characters you could want, the great character dynamic there, and the story, again, it's the story, again, it's like simple. People, like, it's established really early on exactly what's happening. You get everything about it pretty much exactly from the beginning, and then it builds on itself over time, like at a gradual pace without ever being too much at once. Even the way they, like, Tokiyuki develops as a character, like, gradually over time, and like you see him develop experience in dealing with various kinds of people, and like gaining the experience he needs to be like the feudal lord or whatever. Gaining all that experience he needs, it's fun, it's compelling, it's like, and this is one of those that never takes itself like too seriously. Like, it is telling a compelling story, and you know, there are people dying pretty much all the time, but like, it does have a sense of silliness that is welcome. And again, it feels like Saturday morning cartoons, right? Like, it's fun, it's silly, it's got all the kind of quirky, wacky characters you could want. Even Yorishige, the guy who can see the future, serves as like a almost like a connecting thread for people in the present to connect to this time period way in the past. Be like, oh, well, I can see the future and I know all about these like new social media terms, and like nobody else understands, but if I look at the camera and say it, they'll get it. And I'm sure like kids in Japan probably get a kick out of that. I didn't think it took anything away from what was going on. So, and I didn't realize it's by the creator of Assassination Classroom. So like the silliness makes total sense. It fits right in without ever taking away from the story. And I think like even just it just is so sensible from every angle, in my opinion. Like, it's the story like gradually builds on itself at a nice pace. It's even the visuals, I think, look fantastic. It's Cloverworks, of course. It didn't windbreaker it by any means. Like, the 3D could have, 3D is a little, but for the most part, there are a lot of really good sequences in this. I forget, was episode 9? The one that was really impressive with all the moving Tokiyukis around. That was really cool. And even besides that one, there are some really strong action sequences throughout. So like, this one's just really fun. I have nothing but praise for this one so far, and I do hope we get more, because just the note it left on it, it looks like they're going to go for more, and I want more out of it, because I want to see where it goes next. Yeah, thank you Cloverworks again this is, again, I'm not gonna sacrifice anybody because this wasn't like windbreaker good, but I think it like, just from adapting another Jump manga, like, and it's only a matter of time before we get like Kagurabachi and the whole 9 yards, you know, keep it, this level of quality is nice to see, right? So it's good. Really happy with this one. Just good fun. Even like the antagonists are like, I don't think the antagonists are great by any means, but like they do their jobs exactly as they should. So they're like the kind of gimmicky guys you love to hate from the types of like Saturday morning cartoons for kids. Like it's that, right? It's good fun, and I had a good time watching it. So that's all I can ask for. All right, do I do the thing? I guess I should. Shika noko 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 koshtantan. Shika noko 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 koshtantan. That one. All right, we're talking about my dear friend Noko-tan. So the meme didn't last too long, and I'm okay with that. It was funny for about 10 minutes. But actually, you go and watch the anime, and it's actually pretty funny. It's ridiculous. It might be the most ridiculous anime I've ever watched. Like, just everything about it is insane. They use a lot of the same bits a lot. So like after the first half, a lot of the same things, you start seeing a bunch of time, like a lot of the same like sort of background jokes, I guess. You start seeing a bunch, so some of the stuff that was funny earlier kind of stops being funny in the second half. But overall, it's so like the first few episodes genuinely had me cackling. Like it's ridiculous in all the craziest ways. There are some things I think they do are very weird and maybe a little bit out of place. Like even in the first episode, but just overall, I think it's a great time. I wish the ridiculousness sort of built on itself and a little bit more of a cohesive narrative. Maybe that's a little too much to ask. This is definitely more like a sitcom kind of thing. But it's just so ridiculous and mostly, for the most part, I think really funny, that it just works, right? One thing about Japanese comedy, I don't know if I want to generalize it to Japanese comedy, but there's the presence of a straight man in every scenario, I think, is kind of not necessary, right? Like someone who, because you know, whenever you see a comedy bit being set up and then knocked down in an anime, there's usually some guy who's just like trying to, I guess, relate to the audience, being like, hey, wait, isn't that actually really stupid? The thing that you're doing, isn't that actually really stupid? Am I the only sane one here? Like, this is a show that could have done without a straight man, in my personal opinion. Just let the ridiculousness speak for itself. I think in a lot of cases that was actually the case. There wasn't a straight man. But the blonde girl usually is the one that serves as the straight man in these cases. And by the end, she sort of like becomes used to it, so it kind of isn't as obvious as it is early on. But for a lot of times, I feel like the presence of a straight man could have kind of actually detracts from the comedy of this one, because that's how ridiculous it is. Just let how crazy it is speak for itself. Because like, if you do something, even no matter how stupid or random it is, if you do it enough times, it will probably become funny, right? Like, so just having like these 3D models of like real deer just sprinkled throughout, or like doing random shit in this one, you kind of like, the first time it's like, what? And then eventually you keep enough times, you have the camera like zoom in really close to a deer's face, and eventually it becomes funny. And it's probably random enough to get some people laughing on the first go round. So like, I think for the most part, if you are like, I guess an absurdist, like you have that absurdist sense of humor of like Gen Z, or maybe even a little bit younger than us, like you'll probably get a kick out of this one. I know I did. And even the way it ends really isn't that bad. Like, the way it like rounds itself out, like, it's whatever. Like, a lot of the stuff they do, as you would imagine, is inconsequential. But even the other characters besides the main two are like kind of fun in their own ways, and they don't, they all have a unique element to bring to the comedic table, if you will. So I appreciate that about it. And so, yeah, it's alright. it definitely could have been worse. Like, it was good fun for what it was, for sure. Next up is Wistoria, Wand and Sword, and I am happy to say I love this one. I think it is fantastic. It feels like a love letter to this genre of show, right? Where you have a guy in a place where he doesn't really belong. Because a lot of people put this in the same category as like Black Clover and Mashal, and I don't agree with that at all. Just because you have a character who can't use magic in a world of magic, I don't agree with that. I mean, I get it. Obviously I get it, but I don't agree with that. For me, this falls into the category of like Chivalry of a Failed Knight, the Asterisk War. This show falls into that category for me, and it feels like a love letter to those kinds of shows where you have like a main character who doesn't really have a lot of friends in his scenario. He's different in some way. He doesn't really fit in, and yet somehow he's more proficient than just about everybody, all of his peers, right? By hook or by crook, he becomes surrounded by people who eventually grow to understand him, and this show falls into that category for me. And I don't think it makes a single misstep. Like, especially within these 12 episodes, I was hooked immediately. Like, I think it's great fun. A lot of the characters really help contribute to what we know about this world that aren't Will, right? So, like, we have the red-haired boy who gets really angry. I'm gonna look at his name. Shion. Yeah, him. I think even like his a lot of his like frustrations throughout like the little tournament thing, I think they're probably warranted. Like, he's a little annoying, but I think his frustrations are warranted given his upbringing, because we see some of his backstory and stuff. There's Julius, who like is just the fucking fuck you, dude. You're just a little bitch boy. The stuck up little prick who thinks he's way better than he is. Even like we have the professor who's like sympathetic to Will, and like the guy opposite him who's like hates Will and wants him gone. Like, I basically have no complaints about this, and I'm gonna say something maybe a little bit obvious. Maybe it only happened once I knew this little factoid, but this show does scream to me. It seems like it was by an author who's been writing something else for a long time and wanted the change of pace. Because it feels like something that, has been cooking in someone's head for a little while, but hadn't really had a chance to put pen to paper. And that's why he got someone else to do it for him. Because unlike a lot of this style of show, like the Asterisk War and all that, this is actually a manga. The source is actually a straight up manga. And for those who didn't really get that, that comparison I made, the story of this is by the author of Danmachi, of Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? So this is his side project, and Danmachi's still going on. The light novels are still coming out, but this is like he's feeding the story to the artist, the one who's drawing the manga. So it feels like someone's doing a change of pace. It's like someone doing something they've wanted to try for a while. And because of that, it feels so refreshingly simple. It's simple. There's such an elegant simplicity to this show. Like, it sets it up immediately, exactly what you're getting into. We have all the characters you'll see pretty much. Like, of course, people get introduced later on to build upon the world and the story and all that. But like, I don't think it in these 12 episodes, and this is gonna end in tomorrow. But I've read the manga ahead of time. Even in these 12 episodes, I don't think it ever escalates to a point where it's super compelling. Like, it gets to its, and obviously that's probably intentional because there's going to be more later on in the manga. But even like their final confrontation with like the demon, the big king guy or whatever, the big demon guy in the dungeon who's like 10 gazillion credits, it doesn't feel super climactic because at this point we don't yet know the deal with those guys who summoned it. So it's just these guys who are stuck dealing with it, right? And there is a great moment there where like the wand and sword come together, and it's like, remember, Will, it's all about wand and sword. So like Shion uses fire magic to connect with Will's magic sword, and he like fucking does some huge damage and all that. Even though they don't end up knocking out the guy themselves, but like even like you see Will's like perseverance and like valiant spirit win over like Liana and win over what's his face, Elfman. Like, and like because you see like the elf guy has a similar past to Will, where he was like rejected by his peers because he couldn't do magic properly. So like people come to sympathize and understand Will over time as he like his genuine kindness comes through. It's just really compelling, and like I love Will's like the aspect of Will's character where like he's terrified, right? Like Colette says it in like episode 11 or whatever. Like imagine putting yourself in Will's position, right, where he's the only sword user in a world full of magicians, in a world full of sorcerers. He's terrified, like going up, getting in close with these terrifying monsters, but he's more terrified of like losing people he cares about or not upholding his promise with Elfie. Like you totally get his perspective, and I wish we had a little more from Elfie. Like I just want a little, like she doesn't really contribute that much. We don't even get a whole lot of flashbacks to her, but I do understand her presence there. Like she's obviously the one, like when Will's like reaching out in the opening, it's like, oh, he's going to see Elfie, he's gonna reach her someday. That's the whole bit. I get it. I just want a little more, but I'm going to read the manga, so hopefully I'll get more. Basically the only things I didn't like about this, I don't understand why Iris is there. She kind of makes me angry. And the roommate guy / girl, whoever, the roommate, they, them, whoever they are, I don't understand their purpose either. And I kind of got really angry when, like, this was the teenager to be talking, like, I got really angry when they kind of interrupted their Will and Colette's little date for no fucking reason at all, when Colette was the one who worked up the courage to ask him out. Stupid little fucking homewrecker. Even though they're not endgame, him and Will and Colette are not endgame at all, but, you know. Poor Colette, she hasn't done anything wrong. She's just getting the short end of the stick all the time. Anyway, this is just great. It really is. Like, it's such a fun watch. I just love it. And let's not forget how consistently good this looks. Like, the fight sequence are almost always great. Like, it's the camera angles, the movement, fluid motion, choreography. It's all top notch. It's much better than like any other show of this style, right? Like, it just has it all. They clearly went above and beyond for this one for like a lot of the fight sequences. Like, there are not a lot of shows like this of like that on the surface seem kind of like throwaway fantasy shows that you could get anywhere. So when you actually watch this one, it's like you're surprised by how like elegantly simple the story is, how well it builds upon itself, but also how good the fights are. And how cool the animation looks, almost like very consistently. It almost always looks good. There are some times where it kind of fumbles a bit, but they're, for the most part, like 95 to 98% of the time, it looks great. So, yeah, it's fantastic. I can't recommend this one enough. I'm a sucker for this kind of show. Huge fan. Thank you, Wistoria. I hope we're confirmed for more by tomorrow. I hope so. Okay, the Suicide Squad Isekai. I'm not going to spend too long on this one, because I kind of forgot it existed because it ended a while ago. I'm going to read right off my notes for this one. Now, I'm a man who, as a 17-year-old virgin, went to see the Suicide Squad movie when it came out in theaters, because Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn really did something for me. So I pretty much haven't seen anything Suicide Squad since then. Obviously, the original Suicide Squad movie was not anything to write home about. Seeing the Suicide Squad Isekai, it seems ridiculous on the surface, but I actually think they made it work pretty well conceptually. Like, and in the execution, they're like, oh, I can understand why they're going to this other world. Like, the lady in charge of everything, I forget her name, in her little research lab, they ended up creating a portal to another world, and they're like, well, we're running a little short on resources, why not start collecting from wherever this goes? And so as like a, you know, as like a suicide mission, they're like, let's send our disposable prisoners into the Isekai, see what happens. So you totally get it. You gotta imagine they were creating the portal to the other world specifically to be able to collect materials since they were running short. The way it starts establishing itself from the beginning, it generally makes sense. I think it's it does feel like a Suicide Squad thing. Like, the writing, I think, is like witty and bantery enough to blend in with other DC, similar DC things and other Suicide Squad stuff. Like, the way the events build upon themselves and like the crazy shit the 5 main characters get themselves into, it, and like how everything goes wrong and they have to find a way to deal with it anyway. It is Suicide Squad-esque, so I appreciate it for that. I kind of thought they would fumble that a little more than they did, but generally, like, the progression and everything really just made sense. Like, it wasn't anything crazy by any means, or groundbreaking, and it kind of, a lot of the like setting, like the setting of it is very generic isekai stuff, but just seeing like Harley Quinn and these other DC characters in you know, in like an anime isekai is a little almost jarring enough to stand out just for that reason alone. So yeah, it's like one of those things, like, on the surface, like, why was this ever greenlit? Who came to the boardroom with this idea, and whose manager was it that was like, oh hell yeah, let's do that? You know, like, but overall, I think it could have been a lot worse. Like, you know, the Suicide Squad's like chaotic nature, it was evident from the beginning, and like even the way they interact with like the Isekai kingdom and like the reveals about the Isekai's stuff later, like with the queen and all that. It does like keep you on your toes a little bit, and I don't think the way it resolves was all that good. But it could have been a lot worse, I think. I think it really could have been a disaster, and I don't think it was at all. It's just pretty standard superhero fodder with like an isekai coding, right? Like, I think a lot of superhero stuff has started to blend together, and, you know, you get the same like kind of witty back and forth writing as like you would expect from like a DC trying to be Marvel. It's not bad. It's not really interesting per se, but I do think it's a relatively fun watch for what it is. So, fair play to it for that. I thought it was going to be a lot worse. Alright, Days with My Stepsister. I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is way too dramatic for its own good. I think I might have had it with bittersweet adolescent romance shows. I've had it right about up to here with this garbage. God forbid characters in anime are allowed to have fun. And God forbid they be happy. Oh man. You could actually count on one hand how many times the main 2 characters are actually happy in this show. Like, genuinely happy. And I know there's a certain compelling nature to watching kids deal with complex emotions, but this, maybe it's the subtlety of it, because maybe I'm just a dumb idiot reptile brain moron who doesn't appreciate the subtlety of this show, but I think it's dumb. This show, it seems like it's trying hard to pass off as like one of those dramatically storyboarded slice of life shows or movies like Suzume or some shit that has meaning in just about every shot. But in fact, just about all of those extra scenes that are supposed to like add tension or like shape the world, you know, build the world, just waste your fucking time. They're almost always pointless. The art style is definitely good, and I appreciate that at least, but the amount of the time the show wastes on pointless introspection between the 2 main characters on top of pointless dramatic shots of the dude pushing his bike up a hill is astounding. Like, the amount of time spent on like establishing shots and like that pointless introspection should have been cut in half, and I probably wouldn't have any reason to complain about it. Because the establishing shots don't really even do that well with establishing anything. And because they don't contribute to the character's feelings, really. They're just pointless. They're just like, I'm just gonna push my bike up a hill for literally 40 seconds. No dialogue, nothing. He's just pushing his bike up a hill for 40 seconds. How can any human being create something so devoid of fun? It's amazing. I'm actually baffled by how funless this. It's like being sexless, but being funless. There's nothing fun about this show. Here's the thing, right? It's like episode 1. We've got these like 2 characters. Their parents are remarried. They don't know each other. They go to the same school, but they start off and they're like, let's agree. Let's come to an agreement here. We're not going to have romantic feelings for each other. We're going to be a good brother and sister who don't cause trouble for our parents. And they're like, yeah, let's shake on it, promise. And you'd think if they were gonna contradict that and turn it into a show where they're dealing with romantic feelings for each other, they do something to immediately contradict that, but so that you have that expectation going forward. But they don't do that. So when they eventually like develop romantic feelings for each other or some semblance of that, and they start having these introspective scenes that take like 5 minutes where they're like, I know I shouldn't be dealing with these feelings. I shouldn't have had even developed these feelings in the first place, but I can't help but feeling attracted to someone who genuinely understands me because I'm edgy and like feel like I understand the world. I'm 16. I've already surrendered. I'm so jaded, but finally someone understands me, and how am I supposed to keep myself from developing romantic feelings for that person? So we didn't have that expectation because they didn't contradict that like in the first episode during the establishment of what this show was about. So, like, when it becomes that, it all of a sudden just seems like it's contradicting everything that it was supposed to be from the start. Like, if it was just gonna be a show about two step-siblings living their lives in high school and, like, making the most of their youth, working part-time, like, finding out, having friends and shit and having fun, that's fine! It would have been boring, but it would have been fine. Now that they have, like, romantic feelings for each other that they can't act on, it just becomes a waste of time because there's no romance, because they can't have romance. There's just these weird, awkward sexual tension moments that never go anywhere. And then, like, oh man, I can't even think right now. And like, even the side characters really don't contribute anything. Nothing, because it's supposed to be about this show of like this weird relationship between the main character and Saki, and they like, you know, you see them like kind of dealing with their feelings, and I get why that might be appealing, but then you add romance that can never go anywhere, and all of a sudden it's just perpetually being blue-balled. Because there's nothing appealing about that, and even like these characters come across as like they're 16, they're like so jaded, and like I've already surrendered myself to a fate of like people never understanding me, and I'll be in the working world where people will judge me for my appearance and all this garbage. And then, but then it's also like you want them to judge you by your appearance to some degree, but like just so that they don't ever approach you or whatever. Like everything about it is funless. Even some of the side characters who are actually kind of fun are, when they end up around the main characters who are funless, they become funless. Because even when they're supposed to be dealing with these complex feelings that make this a really compelling narrative, it spends too long on it, and they can't ever go anywhere with them. Because it's not like the show is ever going, like, if, you know, in the light novel, it's not like this show is ever going to develop into a romance between them, so there's no appeal there. It's not going to develop into a purely sibling-like relationship where they're really comfortable with each other and have these, like, fun talks. So there's no appeal there. It's just nothing. I wanted to like this one because I really like this author. He's the one who wrote Imo Uza, and I like that one. My friend's little sister has it in for me. It's delightful. That is the opposite of this. It is so fun. This is funless. There's just nothing fun about it. Even like the closest they get to having fun is like when they go to the pool or whatever. And they don't even actually show anything from the pool. It all happens in a flashback. So they're not having fun at the pool. They're just like sitting at the pool away from the rest of their friends talking with each other. Like, you kind of understand the main character, like the little backstory, like having his mom going away or whatever, like that there's something there. And like Saki is like has a lot of like really instilled feelings of like just society as a whole. Like there is something there for sure. So like you do see them like working out these problems that they have, and eventually like, you know, the main character calls Saki's mom his mom. Like he's starting to see her as his mom. And there is stuff there, but none of the side characters are good. And I'm not about to make an argument that the main two are good. It just fails to be dramatic. You're not Suzume. Go home. Don't watch this one. Just don't. I don't know who you have to think you are to find enjoyment out of this. I'm gonna read a Mal review right now. Execution is flawless. My ass. The best seasonal. Give me a fucking break. 40 seconds of a dude pushing a bike up a hill. It's probably more than that. I wasn't counting. All right, let's change up the flow a little bit. Makeine. Too many losing heroines. This is actually pretty good fun. And I'm definitely not about to make the argument that this looks bad, because it looks great. This is one of those that has establishing shots that help. This is how you do establishing shot. It shows this vivid, vibrant world around them where people are doing things, and it adds to like the overall vibe of like, these people are like, these main characters we have are like kind of, you know, amongst this world where people are like doing things and having loves and falling in love and all this garbage. But I actually think this one does a pretty good job of like, you know, conveying how these characters like fall in love and don't have regrets about it. Well, I guess unless your name is Anna. But because she's just bitter about it, but that's the point. That's her like charm, I guess. Yeah, but this one is like great dialogue. It's fun. I think this is like what Days with My Stepsister should have been, or was trying to be, rather. I think this is what Days with My Stepsister was trying to be. This was actually good fun. A lot of very expressive, specifically Anna, very expressive characters. I think like the way it shows, like it kind of plays on how a lot of Japan like kind of romanticizes romance, right? Like just the idea of falling in love is very romanticized, and this kind of plays off of that. It's about time we got an anime like that, that plays off of this like super over romanticized idea of falling in love, and like how it's not really all that's cracked up to be, because once you're actually there, you have to deal with an actual relationship, and some people don't want to communicate properly, and like, sorry, that was my personal feelings coming out. But it's like the kind of goofy fun you would expect from a show like this, and like it does kind of strike a nice balance between like really heavily featuring the three main girls, and like how their crushes and their ideas of love don't end up coming to fruition, and they have to deal with that reality. And I think the way they do that by like expressing how these characters have like fallen in love and don't regret it, and then like how the main character Nukumizu is like trying to sort of like play intermediary between everybody. It does strike a nice balance, and it has like it does have the element of subtlety that you would expect from a show like this. And it's good, and it doesn't take anything away, and they don't spend 40 seconds of pushing a bike up a hill. It has this unique element to it, right? Like, I really like how it handles those three main girls. Like, it just, I think is really well done. I don't think it's over dramatic. Like, you know, these characters are in their adolescence, like, they're going to be emotional and stuff like that, like subject to these all kinds of new feelings and stuff like that, and they're really dealing with a lot of strong emotions, so you totally get it. This was pretty good fun from start to finish. Like, it's not gonna blow you away, I don't think. I guess unless you're someone who thinks Days with My Stepsister is a 9 out of 10. This is bittersweet adolescent romance, but I think it's done right, because I do like the sort of twist on it, where it's like, you guys your crushes didn't work out, and that's okay. You know, you can still be able to enjoy your youth or whatever. So, I think it's good fun. I like all the three main girls. Nukumizu doesn't really leave much of an impression, but that's kind of the point of him. He really plays straight man through everything, more so than he needs to. And I just think it's pretty solid. I think the most impressive thing was just how it was storyboarded and animated. For sure. Like, there's definitely a very, like, elegantly told story being done here, and I appreciate it for that. You know, very subtly told through like symbolism and visual storytelling and that kind of thing. And like I said, the characters are very expressive, which I appreciate. Even the animation's very expressive. But yeah, it's just decently good fun, and the characters are all the characters there are warranted. Like they should be there, and or the characters whose names we know, and well, you know, they add something or other. But this was also the show that notoriously had a titty overseer. I forget the official title, but there was like someone who was drawn in to oversee the jiggle physics of the pink-haired girl in that one episode. Very impressive. I appreciate the dedication to the craft. Unironically, that's actually like good for them. They need that realism. I get it. Sort of. Anyway, this was pretty solid. All right, Shoshimin, How to Become Ordinary. This is another one that actually has good establishing shots that I feel like help build the world in a way that makes sense and don't linger on for too long. This is one that actually, I mean, it kind of like, when it starts, you know, it starts off and you're like, what is this? Some kind of weird fucking overdramatic, I want to eat your pancreas kind of bullshit? Like, this is some just random ass anime, isn't it? And it is, but it's by the Hyoka creator, so I guess that's something. But the manga is not by the anime, but the manga is by the Hyoka creator. It's a mystery show. I mean, listen. Right, when it comes to the visuals, I'll dwell on this for a little bit longer. Like, the storyboarders clearly had a vision, something they wanted to accomplish with the visuals, and sure enough, it all landed exactly as they wanted it to. It is really great. This one, like, the visuals are top notch. The animation's nice and clean. I really like how this one looks. But this is way too contrived for its own good. This whole show is completely contrived. Like, there's a bunch of mystery solving, and about half of it means anything. And God knows they have to spend the last 2 episodes of this first season explaining for a combined 45 minutes how all of the mysteries from the first 8 episodes tie together. 45 minutes, 40 minutes of straight explanation of how all of the mysteries are supposed to feed together, and how the girl was feeding this guy clues, and like, maybe intentionally or unintentionally, of her scheme to get herself kidnapped to get some money out of it and to free her little friend from the drug squad. Wow! Like, if you have to explain your mystery, it's the good part about mystery shows is that there are usually enough clues to, at least, especially for something that's like overarching and supposed to last over the whole season or whatever. There's usually enough clues for the viewer to go on without the characters in the show explaining what's going on for us to piece the puzzle together. That is not the case in this show. It is ridiculously contrived, and it doesn't create for a narratively satisfying ending. It just feels weird, and it just leaves me feeling like, what the fuck? Why? Why any of that? Why any of that? It just was like, the whole thing, right? Like, the main 2 characters are like, they're like these super geniuses who are just like solving these whatever mysteries in school, like, who's the one who ate the last potato chip? And this guy spends an entire episode delving into their deep psyches and their fucking parental trauma into exactly why they ate the last potato chip. And he fucking nails it. What a guy. Fucking super genius. But, like, you spend the last 40 minutes being like, yeah, when you took me to this ice cream shop one time, you ordered the peanut butter chocolate sparkle flavor. And from that, I knew that your coordinates upon calling your mom on September 8th were, 3,000 latitude, 1,005 longitude. I knew that exactly where you'd be located upon your being kidnapped, because you were intentionally It's fucking baloney! It's baloney! The whole premise of this show is that, like, the 2 main characters are like these super geniuses. I failed to follow through with this thought. They're the super geniuses who are like, man, you know what? I hate being a super genius. I just want to become ordinary, hence the name of the show. So they're like, let's hang out, be ordinary high school kids. We're going to live ordinary lives, have a cool summer break, spend time, maybe fall in love a little bit if you think that's in the cards. And then by the end, they're like, you know what? Let's give up. Neither of you or me, and if we spend time together, we can't be ordinary together because we're both super geniuses, and the super genius will rub off on each other if we spend too much time together. So we got to go our separate ways. We're not allowed to be friends anymore. If you see me in the hall, don't talk to me. In fact, if you ever see me, pretend that we have never known each other ever. Get the fuck out of here. So that's how it ends, and then there's like it ends on there's season 2 announced, but then it ends on season 1 on like the weirdest note where like there's this girl who like maybe is in love with the main dude, and wow. I mean, I just don't understand the narrative appeal of this one, because it's just contrived and stupid. Like, you get the motivations behind why the girl wants to help her friend and why she did what she did, but what I don't understand is the motivations of the author and why he made this. Because holy shit, I mean, it looks good. Yeehaw! That's... wow. I don't know what kind of shit you have to like to come out of this one being like, oh fuck, that was so cool. That was a great show. I don't know what kind of other thing. Maybe Erased. That's probably a stretch. Erased is good. I don't know. Fucking whatever. I can't even. Moving on. Okay, No Longer Allowed in Another World. This one I thought was, again, pretty solid stuff for what it is. Like, it's got a pretty simple concept, and the sort of like gimmick of the main character always wanting to kill himself. It doesn't get as old as you would expect. It does seem like something you would tire of, but it actually never gets too old. So I appreciate it for that, and even like the whole idea that he's an author and occasionally gets really intrigued by someone's story, especially like the Otherworlders who might be abusing their power, and he like writes their story in his little book and they get transported back into the previous, into Earth, where their story can be like restarted from a clean slate and the whole 9 yards. I think it's a pretty decent concept, and I like it in execution as well. It was one of those that kind of started off like, this is alright, but it actually charmed me more as it progressed, right? Like, we have these, like, it's a decent cast of characters. They're relatively funny. Again, the premise is good, so like it works to all the character strength, and we even see like the backstory of like Princess Cat Lady, and the even the little kid has some pretty good character work throughout. So like the kid warrior, and there's some good world building to it as well. Like, and even some of the narratives of like the backstories and stuff of the Otherworlders, especially like that last one with the sister who was sickly. Like, I thought that one was great. They're pretty good for the most part, and like they make sense given like what they're doing in the Isekai and all this. And I like the sort of twist where like the main character meets up with the girl he was looking for and committed double suicide with, but then she's like, you can't be with me as you are now. So there's still like more that you could build on if you were to go seek out the light novels. So I think it does a pretty good job overall. But yeah, like I said, I think the dialogue's fun, good dynamic, it's pretty funny for what it is. Like, I just think it's pretty solid stuff. So like, if you are looking for like an isekai that kind of breaks, I won't say break the mold, but it does do something a little different from your normal isekai. It's definitely not your standard isekai. It's something a little different. And there's a lot of like kind of cool little sub-narratives with everything that don't necessarily play into the overall picture, but are kind of end up making these somewhat compelling characters. It's worth a watch, I'd say. All right, Dahlia in Bloom. This is the latest in the reincarnated heroine isekai who just wants to do her thing without worrying about romance, but ends up worrying about romance. Sort of trend that we've seen recently in anime. Again, there's a really nice simplicity to this one, I think. It starts off, and it gives you a reason to care right away because of the relationship between Dahlia and her father. Like, kind of as it progresses, you see like how that like really nice relationship between her and her dad like kind of affects her going forward, and like how she's inspired by his work to continue making magic tools and all that. Yeah, it kind of falls into the same trap as a lot of these other ones where it just kind of becomes stagnant and a little boring. But I do think Dahlia is a good enough character to sort of carry it through. She's not spectacular in any way, but she is relatively, like, she's a good enough and well-established enough character to sort of carry the reins of the whole show. And I do think her little love interest boy, handsome lad, is good as well. Like, he doesn't take away from anything, and it's nice to like see her have because Dahlia doesn't really ever get too close to anyone except for him, so it's nice to see her in a more comfortable setting with someone else, and like it's nice to see them be able to like collaborate and work together. And like as Dahlia develops like more connections and it grows her little business, her independent business, it's relatively all right. Like it's all right, like it's relatively fun. I'd say it's decently fun. It never gets like too boring or slow. Like there's usually something going on. It just is about the same as like those these ones of this similar style. But like I do appreciate you kind of see how like the hell that she went through when she was working at an office in Japan like kind of affected her determination to like do what she loves in this second life, the second chance she was given. And you see like how that it actively affects her decision making and stuff like that. So like I do appreciate the consistency there. But and in fact, like, she is determined to put like romance on the back burner, and she does. Like there's never really any romantic development, like proper romantic development between her and the handsome lad. It's just really, it's more about the whole magic crafting stuff. So she's like, it's one of those classic things. She brings in ideas from our modern society into like this fantasy world, so which are and become revolutionary, even the simple stuff. So it's not bad. If you like this style of show, or even if you like this kind of setting, I think you'll probably enjoy this one all right. It's just nothing spectacular. I think it's pretty, it's fine. I don't really have anything really to complain about. I just don't really have all that much praise to offer either. I like her design though. She's very pretty. Okay, Mayonaka Punch. I'm really getting to the point where I'm uncomfortable with how often there are new shows that do good character development using content creation as a medium. I'm really not okay with it. This one was pretty charming, actually, for what it was. Like, it has, again, this is one of those that has really gimmicky, goofy characters, and it works to its benefit. I don't think it ever does anything super compelling, really, at least until the end. Like, I think the last sort of, the last spurt of it is pretty fun. Definitely the most, like, compelling part of the whole story. It's got a good dynamic pretty, like, throughout. Like, the characters, you kind of know what you're getting immediately, and you see, like, as their YouTube channel grows, like, did they, they start getting into more goofy shenanigans, and they grow, like, have new connections with other YouTubers, and it's all goofy and fun and ridiculous. But also in there are, like, some good character, there's good character development, like the girl vampire who sings or whatever, like kind of, or did sing, but like had a friend who liked her singing and they wanted to be in a band or whatever, and she eventually grew to love singing again. I can't remember if she met the girl, the friend again, maybe she did, or she just found her guitar or something like that. But I thought that was a good angle. And then like I think Masaki's character arc, where she like, is kicked out of the Hype Up Sisters or whatever they're called, and is like, you know what, I'll just support, I gotta do Mayonaka Punch. If we're gonna do this, I'm gonna support from behind the scenes. But then eventually she's like, she realizes she actually loves being on camera and wants to do it again. And then, in that final little spurt, she's like, hey, it's me, I've been doing stuff with this channel behind the scenes. And like, she even sort of makes up to a certain extent with the other girls, the other Hype Up Sisters. I think it's good fun. Like, it's pretty decent. It's never like, it's always got an air of silliness about it, but there is still some good character work throughout. And again, it's sort of like the vampire-ish vibe of it as well. Like, it's like Call of the Night, but about YouTubers. That's a weird comparison, but it is kind of true. It's good fun. It does have like the same sort of element of not quite taking itself seriously as Call of the Night, right? There's always an element of seriousness sort of behind it that you might like, that might come up every now and then. And there is like some sort of serious repercussions of stuff they do, and like you see how like a lot of the negative negative comments really get into Masaki's head. And affect her mental health and like her motivation and all that, which is real. Like, that happens in real life, so I appreciate that about it as well. So there is some good stuff about this one for sure. I do I did enjoy it. It's some good fun. So if you like this kind of show, like, you know, if you liked, like, I don't know, Viral Hit or the what's the one? Jellyfish Can't Swim. Stuff like that mixed with Call of the Night, if that sounds kind of appealing, you'll probably like this one. Why does nobody remember me in this world? I actually thought this was pretty good. This is one of those that has, like, it immediately sets boundaries, right? It's an isekai, sort of. It is a fantasy, more like. But it immediately sets boundaries, right? Because you have, it's like as soon as you go in, we immediately find out there's only like 5 races of folk. And each one like had a designated hero, and there was a war against, like, between everybody, and the demons got shut out and the humans prevailed. So that's as far as it goes, right? So the world, it won't really be built beyond that, aside from like ways that we learn later on. So like when the main character Kai gets transported to this alternate reality where the humans are about to lose to the demons in the war, that is like the intrigue. That's the element of intrigue, right? So like we still, like, everything about the world is still the same, but like so we still have those boundaries, but everything has different now. So like even as Kai and Rine, I think her name is, explore the world, there's still those very set, like, we know we're not going to go beyond these 5 races. Like, we're gonna meet all the people from these 5 races, maybe fight some folk from the races, and that's gonna be it. And even then, like, I think the way it could have been a lot more confusing than it was, because it's just like it uses like world overwriting or something like that to explain away what happened. And there's also an element of intrigue with who is Rine? Why doesn't she belong to any of the 5 races? And we never really get an answer in these 12 episodes, but we have, we kind of have some speculation. There's some obvious hints to go off of. But I think this isn't one that's like super carried. Like, I don't think the characters are really interesting at all. Like, I think they're fine for what they are. Like, they don't do anything wrong, I don't think. And they are like fairly well established. Like, they're just not gonna blow you away or anything. And I don't really think there's all that much in the way of character development. Kai is not a notable character whatsoever. He's just some guy who like had some kind of role in the war in the previous world, and then took inspiration from like the previous hero when he was granted the use of the sword, the code breaker or whatever, and is like, I'm the one carrying on the hero's will. Even if he's not here, I'll carry on his will. And that's the whole point. That's the whole point of it. So, but yeah, like, it's, again, there's an element of simplicity here. Like, it's exactly like what it says it's gonna be, and not much else. So like, I complained about a previous one where it's like, you should establish exactly what this is in the first episode. This does that, and like, we know everything that we're going to be exploring in the future, and it never like takes us by surprise or anything, and like tries to like bring in things that didn't exist before. It's just got a very good simplicity to it. So if this one did look interesting, I'd recommend the watch, because I think they look like they want to do more, and I think if they do one more season, they'll probably cover the whole story, because I don't think there are all that many light novels. I want more just so it concludes upon the story, because where it is now kind of leaves too much that has been unsolved so far. But even like the characters aside from Kai and Rine, they aren't bad. Like, they add to the whole narrative that's going on. They have like some element of backstory to them, so there's motivations there. It's a pretty decent fantasy. Like, it just sets up exactly what it's going to be and then knocks it down. Done. So it's got a good, simple sort of concept and premise, and then it moves forward with that. So good stuff. I like it. Just the characters really aren't all that, absolutely nothing to write home about, but not bad at all. Pseudo Harem. This is actually so delightful. This show had me grinning like an idiot the entire time. I think it might be like one of those that's like a 4-panel manga where it just kind of has a little bit at a time, because it kind of switches through scenes really quickly. But it does have like a fairly cohesive narrative, and I think the main 2 characters, this, again, it sets up exactly what it's going to be in the first episode, and then it is that for the whole show. And so, and again, this is another one that sort of, it starts and then concludes upon itself by episode 12. So you know you're going to get a, like, if you go into it now, you know you're going to end with a satisfying conclusion. So I'm a big fan of this one. It was goofy in all the fun ways. It had great dialogue back and forth. I think the two main characters are great fun. It's not like they're inspiring characters by any means, but the premise of it, where you have a girl who's an actor, or an actress rather, and like this actress girl who practices her acting, quote unquote, by becoming a bunch of different characters. Like when the senpai, he's like, I wish I had a harem of all these different kinds of girls like in the anime. Every single genre, every single trope of girl was in love with me, and then you have this girl who has a crush on him, pretending to be all the, does the tsundere, does the kudere, the whole 9 yards, and acts those parts out so that he can pretend to have a harem. It's a fun little concept. It's very cute, very charming. I really like it. It just had me grinning the entire time. It's great fun. I actually, as far as romance anime go, like, this is just a delightful little show. Like, it's not going to capture your imagination or, like, fucking super impress you by any means, but it is good fun from start to finish. So, that's about, like, the highest praise I can give a slice of life romance anime like this. I think it's great. I think it is just good fun. It's got a unique premise, and it concludes upon itself. This could have, like, fallen and, like, stumbled because of the voice acting, and the voice acting is great. So it didn't have that problem, and like if the execution had been worse, this could have been a little more intolerable, but it was just wonderful. It was well paced, great fun. Pseudo Harem gets a big thumbs up. Okay, the Ossan Newbie Adventurer. That Ossan is someone older than 30. I would have to guess. This could have been worse. This was all right. It's decent. It's a decent little fantasy show. Again, this one, it does sort of like set up what it's going to be in the beginning, and then it like follows through on its like narrative premises. Like, it has this guy who like doesn't quite realize his own strength, even though he's been trained by this party, like the strongest party in the world, essentially. Like some of the strongest of the various types of adventurer classes there are. So after being trained by them for like 2 years, doesn't quite realize his own strength, kind of demolishes the competition in the test to become an adventurer. You learn as it goes on, and like the story starts to like build, and like the party that he's in, they have like a specific goal, even though we don't see the goal come to fruition like they only make a very small amount of progress towards that goal. In this, there is a narrative sort of satisfying conclusion, because you see like Broston is his name, the ogre guy, or the orc, or something. One of those two. He wanted to train Rick because he wanted to be able to fight someone on equal ground, and because he was so much stronger than everybody, had higher intellect than everybody, he wanted to be able to square off with someone in like a brawl on even footing, on someone who is as strong, or nearly as strong as he was. And Rick was the one who survived that training and came out the other end, this like cracked out warrior. So that is actually a surprisingly satisfying narrative conclusion to these 12 episodes. Like, it just works, and I think even like the other sort of S-rank adventurers don't really do that much, but they're not bad. Like, they don't take anything away, and I think their little dynamic they have going on is fun enough. I don't remember, is it Angelica? The blonde girl. She's a great addition to this whole thing going on here, because it's just nice to see someone who's like she ends up sort of in a damsel in distress position towards the latter half, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but I do like how that's sort of resolved, because she fights her fiance's little champion in the tournament, and then Rick sort of shows how much stronger she could be if she trained for like a month or 2 months or whatever. She took the training regimen for that long, and like shows her potential strength instead of going all out and that really works, because then he does go all out against Broston later on. So like, I think that was an interesting way to resolve that sort of thing. And she is still determined to keep up her training by the end. And even though like she's the one who acknowledges how crazy it is, So, and I think in this case, the straight man works pretty well. But yeah, I think this is an alright fantasy. Definitely not bad. Enjoyable, for sure. Decent premise. Maybe a little bit slow, but not in a bad way, I don't think. And, like, decent world building. Definitely not bad at all. And, like, Rick as a character, as a, like, sort of a lead, could have been a lot worse, I'd say. He definitely could have been a lot worse. So, happy about that. Just, overall, fairly good. I just think this one was fairly solid. Like, decent watch. The strongest magician in the Demon Lord's army was a human. This is probably the most by-the-books fantasy fodder in the whole season. There's nothing spectacular about this one whatsoever. This one just feeds a lot of plot at you, repeatedly over and over. Plot, 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 more things happening, and never really gets a chance to establish any sort of character at all. Like, well, we know who the characters are, really, and, like, their personalities, but we don't, we're never really given a reason to care that much. Like, even the maid girl who gets added later and wasn't already part of the Demon Lord's army or whatever, she's a nothing character and doesn't really get any character development. She's just immediately in love with the main character, and that's it. So, and even, like, between, like, the demon succubus girl or whatever she is, and, like, the pig guy who's, like, the right-hand man of the main character, nothing. So there's just a lot of things happening throughout the world, and a lot of characters doing things. I didn't mean to do the robot there, but because we don't really have much of a reason to care about the characters, I just can't really care that much about the plot either. So, like, if it took a little more time to establish its characters and the dynamic, I think I would care a little bit more, but it just throws plot, 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 things happening. The main character has no personality, and it's just not all that great. It's really just kind of boring. I think the world building is alright, and I like the overall, like, the arc of, like, you know, the main character wants to have human and demon coexistence, and, like, human and monster coexistence, if you will, and, like, helps build this little village he's in charge of with that ideal in mind, and, like, that's alright, I get that, but that's about all there is to his character. Like, he's really not a personality at all. It's not even, like, the fact that he is a human plays all that much into the story either. Like, there's supposed to be, you know, the title would suggest that that's a pretty big deal, but the Demon Lord knows he's a human by, like, episode 4, and doesn't do anything about it. So it's inconsequential in that sense. So it's just kind of lame and boring. It's not bad, it's just not good either. This is, like, the most forgettable fantasy thing you'll ever see, pretty much, in my opinion. Like, a lot of the stuff is inconsequential. Ends up being inconsequential. And I don't think it looks particularly good either. It looks fine. Like, it's just there. Like, it really is just there. And there's really, like, not even, like, all that much, like, side angles either, apart from, like, what's happening in the main story, the plot being thrown at you. So it's just a lot of, like, fighting and, like, war stuff, and there are, like, some extra characters sort of thrown in to kind of change everything up. Like, there's those guys towards the end where they were like, I'm the guy of lightning, I'm super fast or whatever, and there's a bunch of other weirdos. They don't really add anything, they're just there. This whole thing is just there. I'd say I wanted it to be better, but I don't really care. Alright. Angry Man Falls Down, number 479. Failure Frame. I became the strongest and annihilated everything, or whatever it is. This is nearing bad territory for me. I don't think it's fully in bad territory, but it's also definitely not good. Because again, these characters are utterly forgettable. There's nothing interesting about them whatsoever. Like, okay, scratch that. There's one thing interesting about the main character, and it's that he kind of, aside from other angry men who become angry for vengeance but are actually really good people inside, this guy's just a straight up asshole because he was kind of like, he was abused as a child by an abusive family, and like, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna let loose all of this rage I've kept pent up since I was like 6 and being spanked because I ate part of the Christmas tree or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so there's that element to him, but beyond that, nothing. And I almost called her Roxy. She's not Roxy. The elf girl, boring, does nothing. falls in love with the main character for whatever reason, because that's the point. That's what happens in these shows. Cheetah Lady, nothing. The other girl with the Cheetah Lady, nothing. They're just boring characters. They don't really do anything. And even the main character's way of fighting is completely unexciting. He just like poisons and paralyzes people. It's not exciting at all. This one, on the other hand, there are a lot of like kind of side angles happening, like, you know, because he's the one who's banished when his whole class got summoned. It's Ari Ferretta-esque, right? Because the angry man falls down, right? He's the one that gets banished, the only one, and you see sort of like occasionally his class like sort of making progress and like training up and to become stronger, and like how there's a lot of rifts between a lot of the classes and cliques forming, and how everything's gonna go to shit because the goddess is a piece of shit. In a big old bitch, if you will. It's completely unremarkable in every way. The story isn't interesting. The world isn't interesting. The other characters sure aren't interesting. Like the fucking students, they don't do anything. And even the revenge angle for like the goddess is like, it's literally built upon nothing. But he's just like, I'm angry that you did that to me. I'm coming to take your head, goddess. And I'll poison you until you die. It's completely unremarkable. There are, like, Berserk of Gluttony, other stuff like this, Ari Ferretta, are just better. Not that those are really particularly good, but they are better than this. I honestly can't see why anybody would choose this one over stuff like Berserk of Gluttony, Ari Ferretta. Like, there's just nothing more appealing about this than there are with those shows. Nothing. Like, even the characters in Ari Ferretta are vastly more fun and interesting to watch than the characters in this show. Just nothing. And all of like the little the angles with the plot are short-lived and relatively inconsequential. Like, and even the way that the main character immediately adapts to this world, this isekai he's in, just immediately adapts to everything, just doesn't feel right. Like, he's not an interesting character at all. I don't understand why anybody would be on board with him, like, following his story. I'm bored and I don't care. Like, he's not interesting at all. And neither are his friends. I know I've said that a lot, but it's true. And even, like, as far as progress in the overall story, like, it's not like our guy gets particularly closer to getting revenge against the goddess. He's just like traveling along, and like at the end he very nearly comes across his classmates and he's like, glad I didn't do that. And the other girl, not Roxy, is like, one day I'll tell him how I feel, but until then I'll be his servant. I'll be his sword or whatever. And man, it's boring and lame and bad. I just said it wasn't bad, but it's close. It's unappealing. I just don't get it. Like, there are other shows like this that are better in every way. Also, the 3D in this show is atrocious. It looks like shit. It looks ass. It's so bad. It's clunky, and they use it when they really don't need to. The 3D is the 3D, man, it's bad. The models look terrible. The animation is clunky. It's just bad. That is actually just straight up bad. The 3D in this show is unforgivably bad. Is not good at all. There's nothing good about the show, but the 3D is atrocious. All right, I Parry Everything. We're about to be on a roll. We're about to be on a roll of stuff I didn't like. I thought this was going to be relatively interesting, and it just wasn't. This is a show that is completely built upon misunderstandings. There's almost not a single moment in this entire show where every character is genuinely on the same page. Here's the thing, right? I talked about the Ossan adventure a little while ago. That one, it starts off with Rick not knowing his own strength, but eventually he learns of his own strength. He realizes how powerful he actually is in comparison to the rest of the world. Our man here does not, and it is completely unsatisfying because of that. He never learns how strong he actually is, but it ends like you would expect. Like, he's like, oh, I'm just going to continue with my sword and start parrying whenever I need to. So it ends in the way you would expect, but it's completely narratively unsatisfying because those misunderstandings that happen throughout the show are never resolved. They just continue. They just are they're chronic. They are always they're perpetually there. So they're never resolved between the characters, so it never really feels like the characters have an actual meaningful relationship. It's not good. The only like character that is like kind of okay is the little demon boy, because he had like a reasonably compelling backstory, and the main character saved the demon boy out of the goodness of his heart, and like there was something there, and then the demon boy really didn't even play that much of a role in anything. And it's not like the show, like visually, it's not like the show looked particularly good. The characters are completely forgettable. Like Princess Girl and her retainer, like I'm gonna forget about them immediately. So it's just narratively unsatisfying. There's nothing like really good. Like if you're gonna watch this, like the Ossan Adventure is probably a much better alternative. Like it's kind of along the same lines as this one. And one thing that bothers me about the story's narrative, right? So like it starts out with the main character. He's like, I'm going to become an adventurer by any means necessary because I always loved hearing the stories about adventurers and their grand tales of success and riches and glory and all that. But he's just completely, the main character, like talentless. Like he goes to all of like the seven dwarves, or not the seven dwarves, the seven weapon masters or whatever. Or are there 6? I can't remember. But he goes to train with all of the different weapon masters, and every single one, without fail, right, are like, you're not gonna learn anything by studying with me, go get out. And in the first episode or whatever, when we see that for the first time, we're like, oh, you guys are all pieces of shit. You understand their position sort of, and like they're all like, the main character is never going to really develop any particular skills by training with them. But it's not until the last episode that we see it from the heroes, the weapon masters' perspectives, and we see them actually say, holy shit, this kid is ridiculously gifted, and in other ways that we won't be able to train to bring out of him. And not a single one of them had it in, like, might have thought it prudent to be like, hey kid, you're actually ridiculously strong. You should try training on your own. Like you might become a real, like, give the kid hope. Like none of them thought to do that. And it wasn't until he had already grown ridiculously strong on his own that they were like it's only because of him I've realized my own weakness and all this fucking garbage. Like, it's worthless. Like those characters, like you don't feel bad. Like it's not to improve your impression of the main character. It just makes your entire impression of this whole world worse. Like it doesn't serve to be narratively satisfying in any way. It's just a bad angle. Like I don't understand why they did it. Like and it's hard to believe, even just by being completely logical, that none of them thought to tell him that he was gifted in some way. It's amazing. Like I actually can't believe how bad of an angle that is. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything positive. It just makes everything worse. Like, man. Like, it doesn't improve your admiration for the main character for like persevering through that and training on his own. It just makes you think, wow, you guys are all pieces of shit for like not saying what you should have to this actual child with so much hope in his eyes and a future ahead of him. Like, oh. And it's not like I remember their names. I barely remember what they looked like. The weapon masters, that is. It's baffling. Like even the world building, I think, is just like incomplete at best. Like, well, not incomplete in like the sense that there's more to do, but like it's just any character besides the ones who are like given names, like the main cast and like the 6 weapon masters, they are there as like the most basic personality-less NPCs. Like they just don't do anything. They're just there like, he's the emperor. He's the princess's older brother who is in charge of negotiating with other kingdoms. Like he's the emissary or the royal emissary or whatever. He's the emperor's right-hand man who thinks the emperor's decisions making has been bad. So he's going to turn on him. There's nothing. Like all of the characters are just there to fill a space. They don't do anything. The world building is just it's a fart. It's a fart. This whole show is a fart, really. I've been dreading this one. Love is Indivisible by Twins. Now, I think I once in a previous roundup summarized a show similar to this, like another romance show, by saying this is just an anime about every single character handling every decision in regards to their love lives in the worst possible way. Whatever show I said that about, forget it. This is what I'm saying that about now. It is amazing how many bad, stupid decisions these characters make repeatedly. Not even just bad and stupid, inconsequential, and certainly don't help their case. Even just from the beginning, it is baffling. Because the main character and Naori are actual Redditors. In the worst sense of the word. They're actual fucking Redditors in a way that anime has never seen before. Like, everything is a reference to something, to like, oh, this is the person who fucking did the camera work on the second Lord of the Rings movie. Oh, this is the person, like, which score by John Williams do you appreciate the most? Oh, I really like the one he did for Star Wars Episode 2. It's like, everything is a reference, or they're saying dumb shit from like Doctor Who or something. Like, it's amazing. Like, you can't tell if this author wanted to create like a Blue Box-esque sort of like cross romance between like the nerdy guy with good grades and the sporty girl who plays basketball, while also simultaneously like he wanted to create something like a blonde girl with big tits who's a Redditor and knows all of his stupid references to Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and shit and Star Trek and fucking like Doctor Who knows all of these references, who also wants to fuck the main character. I think he just wanted that person to exist, and that ended up being Naori, and it's unbearably cringe. Maybe it's because I knew people like in high school and stuff who were like Star Wars Redditor stereotypes. Maybe that's why it hurts me so bad, but it is physically painful to listen to their conversations sometimes. And it's not like the way they handle their crushes, like the twins handle their crushes on June well at all. And God forbid they work out their problems with each other like civilized people, because all they do is yell at each other and never come to an understanding. They're just like, oh, so we both like June, we're like complete opposites, but that doesn't mean we can't both be in love with June, and June doesn't do anything. God forbid. He's like, I love you both. Probably the worst thing he could have said. The single worst, unsatisfying thing he could have said in this situation. He's like, I love you both. Can you please let me make a decision later? This man's not gonna make a decision. Like, ever. I don't care if you pick up the light novels. He's not gonna be making a decision. It's pointless bickering. Like, Naori just wants to fuck him for some reason because I think she thinks that'll win him over. I can't shake the feeling that he just wanted Naori to exist, right? Like this big boobed blonde girl who likes fucking Doctor Who and John Williams. Like, ooh. It is so specific. And it's not like the romance is any good at all. Even the fan service feels half-baked. So there's not even a beach episode to speak of. So there's nothing. I'm trying to think of what 16-year-old me would have wanted to see in this show, right? Like, I'm trying to think, like, what would I have wanted to see? They don't fucking do anything. Even the side characters are like mostly pointless. They're there to like give advice to the main characters, and sometimes it's bad advice. Like, I think they're gimmicky enough to work, like the cast of side characters, like between the like little professor, sex crazed professor guy. I like the chief girl, the Naori's friend. I think she's nice. Even the blonde girl, like, you kind of thought the blonde girl was gonna throw more of a wrench into everything and like kind of screw up the dynamic a little bit and like really kind of make them think about things. But then she ended up having a crush on Naori, and Naori was like, "Wait, get away from me! I don't like you. I'm in love with June." And she's like, "Okay." And so that was nothing. So the side cast is pretty much pointless, but I appreciate that they're there and like kind of spice things up a little bit. They at least have personality, even if they're not good personalities. But hey, like, I just can't believe how Redditor stereotype this is. It's incredible. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't go out of your way to find out, because these conversations are like genuinely painful sometimes. This is the first time I'm gonna cry on a seasonal roundup. This show brings out like feelings in me that I didn't know that I had. Like, just like I can't, like, this is one of the only shows I've watched in like years where I would, like, every episode there was a moment where I had to like pause and put my head in my hands for like 3 minutes at a time before I could go on. Like, the romance is bad. The character development is not present. The characters themselves are lame. And like half the time they contradict themselves. You remember, like, there was that time when like June or there was this guy who confessed to Rumi, and June was like, oh, you should just go on a date with him, properly turn him down, just see how you feel about it. And then the dude said something to June, but then June was like, actually, you know what? You're not going on a date with this guy. I think I love you, and I'm jealous, even though I won't make a decision about you or already being my girlfriend. Like, ooh boy. Everything about it just makes me angry. I smile through the pain, baby. That's what it's all about. Wow. I can't believe this is real. Alright, a nobody's way up to an exploration hero. This feels like it's for 12-year-olds. And not really in a good way, because there's a lot of like really awkward tension between the main characters, and it's not really a good look. But it's not bad. I do think there's like enough gimmicky characters, enough weird personalities to kind of make it work. It's just a lot of unbearable tension. Like, it's because like the whole idea is like the main character is exploring the dungeon, but his love interest, her dad, was like a dungeon hero, a dungeon explorer, adventurer hero who ended up disappearing in the dungeon some amount of years ago. So she's very not happy that he's putting himself in danger and exploring the dungeon. So literally for the entire show until like the last episode or something around there, he awkwardly hides the fact from her that he is exploring the dungeon. I do sort of like the addition of the 3 other girls, like the angle at the end with like the helping solve the girl, I forget her name, but the girl had a chronic illness, helping to cure that for her with like something from the dungeon. I think that's a pretty good angle. But then there's also a stupid angle that's like, the main character gets into a near-death scenario in the dungeon, and all of a sudden immediately starts like throwing his dungeon paraphernalia and like burning it. Like, he's like, I'll never go into the dungeon again. And later that episode, he's like going into the dungeon again. So like, what was the point of that angle? It just did nothing. It did nothing for anybody. It was pointless and bad. Like, I get being scared. Like, I think it was maybe a necessary thing for that guy's character, but it was just pointless because it just didn't do anything. It was inconsequential. Like, I'd rather just not have it at all. It should have happened, if it was gonna happen, it should have happened a little bit earlier, and it should have been like a proper character arc to get over that again. And like, cause he has like all of these little cute little summons who will defend him and all this garbage. Like, it just is it's, again, there's something there, cause like the other 3, like the 3 girls, they add something to the character dynamic, and it's alright, but like, for the most part, it's just like really awkwardly written, and I don't really like it. This is one where I'm like, I'm a 25-year-old man. I'm probably not gonna really enjoy this kind of show. You know what I'm saying? I'm a late bloomer, definitely. So if you're like 19, maybe just skip out on this one. Okay, A Journey Through Another World. Raising kids while adventuring. That's it. It's just there's a colon there. I didn't realize that was how it was. This is cute. I have really nothing of importance to say about this. I think it's a very cute, inconsequential little isekai where the main character stumbles upon some little kids who need raising and steps up to be the dad. He's the dad that stepped up. Well, I guess, or he's the older brother that stepped up in this case. But it's like nice and satisfying to see the kids like grow and mature and make friends over the course of the show, and like you see them, like, you know, the fact that they can beat people up is sort of charming in its own way, even though the animation is complete nothingness. It's not bad. Like, it's just this cute little thing, and it's inconsequential. It's light. It's fun. You know, like, it's this cute little fun thing, and if this is your thing, you'll probably like it. You know, nothing really of important happens. It's just one of those where like the main character ends up in like ends up really strong, like in the scenario where he's discovering all kinds of shit and making stuff from the other world that gets everybody's attention, you know, and all the important people are like, we want to talk to you, and, you know, we want to make trade deals with you and all this nonsense, and he also has to deal with raising his two little siblings and all that, and the blue hairs. And it's all right. Like, you know, there's some necessary tension sprinkled in sometimes. Like, there was, I think it did everything it probably should have without really making too many missteps. It's just kind of whatever. You know, like, I think if you do get like the sort of parental instinct where you're like seeing these cute little children grow up little by little, you'll like it. And probably also you like Isekai. That probably is also a pre-qualification. But yeah, it's not bad. It's just whatever. Like, yay. Yeah. My wife has no emotion. This one makes me a little uncomfortable. I want to be open-minded, right? I want to be open-minded about people having their preferences. Like, what makes me uncomfortable is like how seriously, like, this is a world, right, where robots are commonplace, robot maids are commonplace, whatever. I get that. It's still very off-putting how seriously he's like, you know, talking to this robot maid and tries to essentially force her into being his wife at the beginning. Like, he considers her his wife, the closest thing he'll have to his wife. And that situation only improves really on her end, because it's still kind of awkward until like towards the end of the show, where we learn that she was like a prototype for these robot maids, and she was like intended by the original creator to have some amount of like actual emotions. So it kind of just feels awkward most of the time, like he's kind of forcing this robot to act the part of his wife. And we also never really learn why it is that the main character guy isn't ever going to try to rizz up an actual woman, a real, you know, a human woman, right? Because for the most part, everyone around him is accepting of their wife, really their married relationship, but we don't really learn on his end why he has already given up on actual human girls and is instead going with the robot. Like, I sort of get it from an emotional standpoint, because she's like always there with him. I do get that aspect of it, but it just is a little uncomfortable. I get it can sort of be fun. It's like fairly enjoyable here and there, and like there's a little bit of like the kid, the sort of little robot, like the little sphere guy throws an extra element into the dynamic, which I appreciate, but I don't find it particularly enjoyable. I don't find it particularly funny. I just was mostly uncomfortable about it. It could have been worse. Like, I do think there are other side characters, like the little guy and the other Mina robot. Their presence was appreciated. Even the parents and like the little sister, I think, added something to the dynamic. So I like something to like the story and the relationship. So, and made them consider new aspects of it. So I appreciate that about it. But overall, I don't really find this one worth the watch. I just think it is uncomfortable and boring. Alright, Quality Assurance in Another World. I think this one's okay. I like the idea behind it, where this is a world, like a full dive game that needs debugging. There are all kinds of bugs around the world, and people can actually get themselves stuck in like these infinite bug loops. Like there was the main character's former companions who had gotten themselves soft locked or in an infinite cycle of death and respawning, which is kind of fucked up if you think about it. There is also that one, I think it was Akira actually, who got thrown into the void that one time, and that's kind of fucked. That's way fucked up. So a lot of that is a little bit scary if you actually think about it, but the overall narrative really isn't anything to write home about. I don't think it's bad. I think it's it's paced fine, and it's it all seems relatively cohesive, and there's some interesting sort of subplots, with the rabbit guy and the girl who dies that he's drawing manga for and all that. It's all right. It's nothing spectacular. It's reasonably interesting conceptually. I think the execution's all right. I wish there was a little more, the villager girl doesn't really make anything of herself, and specifically the way it ends, it's really particularly unsatisfying. I'm wondering if they thought they were gonna do a season 2 of this one, and I don't know if it performed well enough, but we'll see. The way the ending is particularly not good, leaves off on a weird cliffhanger. yeah, it could have been worse. I just don't find it particularly compelling either. I don't find the characters, especially like the main character, I think, for the most part, it just is completely uninteresting. Like, you appreciate the dedication to his work, and that's about all he has going for him in terms of like personality for his character. And that's not really that much. And there's some like weird tension, like Akira being there, and like there's some things with like there's unresolved stuff with like the global AIs. Like there's 5 of the different global AIs, like the one that had taken over the villager girl's body, and then there's the one guy we saw acting as like a king, whose like subordinates say like thought the main character in the party like betrayed everybody and shit, and like there's just really weird things that don't really fit in the story yet. Maybe they would later if they got more, but it just seems kind of out of place now. But it is like it's an all right, like the world building is all right, like you sort of understand what's going on. But there's also the thing about how they can't log out of the game, and it's not like there's a Kayaba Akihiko figure around to explain why that is the case. You know, they just all the debuggers are just stuck with their little debug plates and going around causing mayhem. It's just sort of like whatever. Like, this was all right. Like the sort of like overarching plot of like the global AIs being like, or at least the one being like, hey, we need to get rid of these debuggers who are fucking causing trouble. Like these need to go. And like one of them was the cause of the death of the girl who liked the manga and stuff like that. And like also there was the thing about her forgetting about the rabbit guy, which I guess that was the resolution of it, because he was revived, she was revived by the president of the whatever. And there's also a lot of people stuck in bugs that we'll never see again. Like it doesn't really feel like a resolution, right? Like, you know, those sort of bad guys who were working under the president but betrayed him, got stuck in like the outside of the gate. They're floating and will never move again. Like, doesn't really feel like a resolution. Like, didn't really feel like they won per se. The main characters like won that battle. But yeah, it was okay. It could have been worse, but it also could have been better. Like I said, I like the concept, the idea, but and it has like, you know, like again, like the dungeon stuff. Like there's some okay stuff about it. I think it's all right.
Okay, let's talk about NareNare, Cheer for You. This falls squarely into the category of cute girls doing cute things. So whatever they do, you know, we get like a nice establishing stuff of like, here's the characters, here's like kind of the problems they're facing. There are some like some of the main characters are introduced over the course. It's not all immediate. You don't meet all 5 of the main girls immediately, but so it kind of builds on itself kind of in a nice gradual way in that sense. And I like the dynamic between all the 5 main girls. There's enough different personalities there for it to really work. But because it's like establishing and building on itself nice and slow, whatever like Kanata and the others go through, you're kind of on board whether or not it's very compelling. And I don't think there's not a whole lot of it that is like super compelling, but I do think what they do is very like heartwarming stuff. Like, I appreciate that it's not just them dressing up in cheerleader uniforms and going to cheer for people, because there's a lot about like the effect cheer can have on other people and how it improves their mood and performances, and regardless of whatever it is, when you have someone who's genuinely cheering for you to do better and to do your best. So that is a good theme of it. But Kanata is also in the cheerleading squad, and she has like a genuine fear after a fuck up she had in her middle school cheer squad. So she's like afraid to, you know, I don't know what they call it, but you know, the smaller girls who get fucking thrown into the air and do a triple backflip. She's afraid to do that because the last time she did one of that crazy trick they do at the end where they toss each other, like there's like 2 stacks of girls and they toss each other to the other stack and then pose together. They catch, the opposite one catches them, and then they pose together. That is terrifying. I cannot imagine someone doing that. That is fucking terrifying. Like, that character arc of her, like, getting over that through pom-poms as a medium. Like, she does more cheer stuff, and then eventually grows to overcome her fear. She's like, well, welcome back into the cheer squad in high school and all that. I think that's good. Even, like, the girl in the wheelchair, like, her showing her like character development through her physical therapy, like her actual the progression of her physical well-being, like, you know, towards the end where she like has that moment, she's trying to bring pom-poms back together after comments that kind of caused a rift in there with that one comment. She went branched off. The girl in the wheelchair like kind of stands up for the first time in a while, and she's like tries to do her best to cheer, and she like it's like showing that she's doing her best as well, even if she can't actively participate with the rest of the girls. It's good stuff, and like there's even subplots like the Brazilian girl and the fucking record shop that she doesn't want to go under. I think that couldn't. She's being a little bratty in that, but that's whatever. Like I think I forget her name, but the kind of plainer girl, she even has some of her own issues, and then fucking the parkour girl also like overcomes her like a lot of the anxiety she had by and all of them use like pom-poms as a medium to overcome all of that stuff. So I think that it's good in that sense, and it's very sweet. Like the pom-pom stuff they do is really like charming and sweet, and I didn't expect the final angle to be like the senpai who like let her feelings get to her, left the mean comment on Pom-Pom's channel or whatever. She like ends up joining Pom-Poms, and I certainly didn't expect the group to like break up at the end. But I guess it makes sense considering they all have their own dreams and shit. But I thought this one was pretty cute. I don't really have much to complain about, really. It's just it's a little all over the place. There's not really a super cohesive narrative with everything. Like, not everything contributes to the overall story, but the pom-pom stuff is really really sweet, really cute. So like I said, squarely in the category of cute girls doing cute things, stuff like that. I actually think, for my money, this was one of the better ones in that category. So,
and ironically, the 3D in this is miles better than the 3D in Failure Frame. So take from that whatever you want to. I'm almost hesitant to even talk about this one. Bye Bye Earth. The first episode of this seemed like it made the show seem so promising. And it's amazing how fast, after the first episode, it became this unintelligible mess of a story. I mean, baffling. Like, it just became immediately, I'm lost. like the first episode does a great job of like setting up the main girl Belle, and like there's so much like potential intrigue with the world she's in. Like, why is she the only one who's just a straight up human? What's the deal with that? What happened to the rest of humanity? Where are they? Like, what kind of trials is she gonna have to go through in order to, like, you know, first become a nomad and then start traveling around? What's gonna happen after that? Wow, it's a mess though. Like, I honestly don't even know what to tell you other than that I have no idea what happened. There was a couple good moments with it. Like, she, like, met up with her, like, the parents who raised her again, and, like, there's, like, this, you know, the guy who trained her was, like, hiding a secret. He's, like, involved with some of, like, these weird folks who, like, are in charge of something or other, and, God, it's a mess. But then, like, by episode 4, she's, like, doing a marching band performance or something. Maybe that was episode 6. But, like, she fights this character who, like, doesn't matter. Like, her sword, she, like, hears voices in her head. They talk to her. They understand. They counsel her or whatever. Like, the sword has a voice. The secondary guy, the potential furry love interest, or anthropomorphic love interest, rather, just turns into this crazy mess of a character who, like, we don't understand even a little bit, and, like, even his interactions with Belle just become stupid and messy. Like, everything is a mess in the show. It's kind of amazing. I don't know what's gonna happen when season 2 rolls around, but hopefully it ends, because I saw there's only 4 volumes of this original light novel. Wow, like, nothing makes sense after the first episode. Because, like, there were a lot of, like, the fight sequence from episode 1, I thought was like, this is cool. Like, we're gonna see some, like, properly build upon this character. Nothing. Like, the Belle as a character pretty much goes nowhere, which is a big shame, because I really wish she would have. She had a lot of potential, I thought. Anyway, next. Alright, VTuber Legend. The time I went viral when I forgot to turn off my stream or whatever. This is great fun. I honestly love it. It's charming. It's a lot of goofy characters. It is, if you are familiar with the VTuber space at all, you'll feel right at home, right? Like this, it's delightful, it's good fun, it's the exact kind of goofy shenanigans you would expect, but like even because it's written, you know, it's intentionally written to be goofy, it's not like unscripted stuff like VTuber stuff is. It's intentionally written to be goofy. It's like the goofiness taken up a level, right? So it's like all of the goofiness taken up to the next level. So it's really fun, really silly, and I think the characters are delightful. Like even there's some good backstory for the main girl, like not the main girl, but the one who like has a concert at the end, Haru or whatever her name is. Like you know, just seeing the various streamers interact with each other and hold these like goofy streams. It's just good fun. It really is. Like, I can't say enough, like, things about how just goofy fun it is. Like, even throughout, like, this is one that never really stops being funny. Like, it has its same jokes, but it plays off the jokes in, like, new ways with different characters, and it just works. Like, it never really had me laughing as hard as Shikanoko, but I think it's, like, more consistent, and it has, like, this compelling, overarching sort of subplot. Well, I guess it would be just the overall plot, but like of how, like, you know, the main character, her like true personality coming out on that one accidental stream ended up like inspiring a whole lot of people, like other members of her VTuber agency, to be friends with her, and like eventually when she has like the kohais, like her true personality coming out and people like being attached to it, like the fans really getting a kick out of it, inspired other people to you know, continue streaming and like be true to themselves and who they are, and like it's actually just really sweet stuff like throughout. I'm a big fan of this one. I think it was really cute, really sweet, funny. Like the characters are charming. It's, again, if you watch VTubers, you will be right at home. It is VTuber shenanigans. So yeah, good stuff. Big fan of this one. I am great. I just had a good time with this one. Really did. Like the voice acting, I think is phenomenal as well. Like just really brings out that goofiness, that silliness that we want. Like great stuff. Really good. Okay, I think this is the first time I've ever talked about a visual novel adaptation. Maybe? Atri, My Dear Moment. Maybe this is better as a visual novel, but man, I'm confused. Now, this, like, the way it does its world building and stuff, like, or even, not even that, but, like, the world that it builds feels like something out of a visual novel, right? But a lot of things about the story feel kind of rushed, and they don't make sense in terms of like what we know about the characters, and I don't particularly like the pacing of the story. I don't really particularly like all the things that happen in the story, and I think like a lot of the characters are forgettable. I get the angle they were going for, but I feel like, you know, if this were experienced in a visual novel and you like see, like you get those lines that are like explaining the main character's thought process, right? Like the big, like, you know, it sort of starts with like the main character kind of starting to get along with the other people on this island after the oceans rose or whatever, One Piece style. But like after the oceans rose and flooded everything, like their previous homes, like this guy has been sort of locked up in his submarine, in his yellow submarine, doing whatever. So like it starts with him like finding, you know, meeting other people, like helping out the little school. It is sort of compelling in its own way, like sort of helping them have a better life with the knowledge that he has. And then it eventually, like the big dramatic twist is like him and Atri fall in love. Atri's like a humanoid robot who supposedly has a heart, and like there's this big kibosh about whether or not she has a heart. He catches her diary, and she's like, I responded this way, and it made his dick hard. And he's like, what? You betrayed me! And, you know, has this whole fucking meltdown about it. And then, you know, by the end of the next episode, he's over it, so whatever. Like, that felt weird to me. But it's just, it's Uncanny Valley romance like this really isn't my thing. It doesn't really work, in my opinion. Like, maybe the visual novel is better. It's one of those that tries to be really dramatic, I think it's close to getting there. Maybe somewhat close to getting there, but just most of it doesn't really land properly for me. I'm just not a huge fan of this. But like, the dialogue and the writing is not bad. Like, the characters sort of getting to know each other gradually is good, and like kind of learning more about each other. Like, the side cast is completely forgettable, other than maybe the brunette girl. I think she's a sweetheart, but like, is she brunette? Fuck, I don't know. But yeah, this is not over yet, so it's gonna, you know, I want to reserve final judgment. But yeah, the big, like, sort of twist angle, like, where he's like, don't pretend you have a heart, you don't, you're just a robot. I order you to act like a robot. And like, he's all like, it just ends up conflicting him even more, and like, but then by the next episode, he's like, she does have a heart. Actually, I changed my mind. And it does like tie into like Atri's past. It tied into her past as well. I get it. That doesn't mean I have to like it though. It's not like it was, because I mean, it's not like that part was incompetent per se. I just didn't particularly, I wasn't particularly a fan of it personally. So like the Uncanny Valley stuff is really not, you know. Again, I don't know how this compares to the visual novel at all, but I think, like, the world building's all right, and like, you know, a lot of the characters are not bad by any means. It's just, there's a lot of things about the narrative that confuse me, and I don't really think land the way they should. Like, I think the big, you know, that big twist of like, Atri, like, not, you know, being more of a robot than she came off, was probably meant to happen after like a lot more sort of emotional investment than we got in like 8 or 9 episodes or whatever it was. So like in the visual novel, I can imagine that being sort of a lot bigger of a deal than it seems in the context of the anime. So for that, I'll give it a pass, but I just didn't really find it all that compelling. Like, I think the world it builds is fairly interesting and unique, but like, whatever, who cares? It was mostly like, I don't think the characters are spectacular at all. Like, nothing notable about them. Just an all, like, a fairly cohesive story that kind of falls flat. Okay, and let's immediately bring my spirits back up, because we're moving to 2 cores. Let's talk about Mission Yozakura Family. This is the first time a manga that I have like specifically recommended on this channel has, well, unless SAO Progressive, but that already had a movie at the time. This is the first time one of the manga I've specifically recommended on this channel has gotten anime, and I could not be happier about it. We're getting 2 next. I'll be reviewing 2 next season, but whatever. Would you believe it? I still love Yozakura Family. I'm not going to sit here and ramble too long about it, but I think Yozakura Family strikes a near perfect balance of goofy silliness and compelling story. Like proper compelling story that like really gets you invested in the characters. Like, one thing I've complained about other anime previously in this roundup even is that it doesn't do a good job of establishing its characters. This is the complete opposite. You are immediately drawn into this one, at least for me, I was. You're immediately drawn into this one because it establishes exactly who these characters are within the first few episodes. Like, we know exactly who, like, maybe they're a little gimmicky personality-wise, but like, it works because there's a bunch of them and they're well-rounded. It's a well-rounded cast. So you know exactly who these characters are immediately, and then you learn more about them gradually as the story builds upon itself, and Taiyo spends more time with each one of the Yozakura siblings, and like, the dynamic between him and Mutsumi is precious and wonderful, and like this, and even little by little, even if they're doing inconsequential stuff, the story is building upon itself because Taiyo is learning more about the world of spies that he was previously not privy to, and he's training and honing his skills to become better. And then we learn more about Tampopo and his fucking, like, his parent, the secret behind his parents' quote unquote murder, like they were intentionally taken out by somebody. And his dynamics with each one of the Yozakura family siblings improves, and like they become more attached to him, and we just love watching them interact because it's goofy and fun, and like it always had, like, it's one of those that never quite, maybe sometimes, but like usually never takes itself 100% seriously. There's always an element of silliness imbued into these like into fighting or whatever. There's always an element of silliness to it, and it's fun. You probably have to be someone who appreciates that kind of thing, but if you do, like, it just has a great balance of it, in my opinion. Like, it has this compelling narrative that builds very gradually, so it never feels like you're overwhelmed, but it also is goofy and fun, and it's always fun. Like, and even besides that, besides the wonderful characters, the great character dynamic, the fun writing, and the interesting story, there's also, it has pretty solid visuals here and there. Like, I can't remember what episode it was. I wanted to write it down, but I might like episode 20 or 19. But there are probably stuff from even before that. It has good fight sequences as well. Like, nothing that will blow you away, but they didn't slack off on the animation too. So, like, I really appreciate that about it. And, like, you know, the story that, like, you learn why the Yozakura family is so special, and, like, as Tayo sort of grows, like, Tayo's skills, like, develop and are improving, like, you see everything as Tayo trains to become a better spy and learns to be able to protect Mutsumi to the best of his ability, and, like, he gains sort of perspectives from the other Yozakura family siblings, and, like, it's just wonderful. It's just a wonderful time. Like, I think overall they made the right decision to end with, like, the Yozakura family attack on the Tampopo headquarters, because they had to skip some stuff, like some sort of, like, there's a lot of early chapters in the manga that are inconsequential that they had to skip over in the anime in order to, and obviously it's not over yet at the time of recording, but I've read the manga. So they made the right call to end with that arc, right? So even if you had to skip over some of the inconsequential stuff from earlier in the manga, I think that overall was the right call. So, yeah. I'm just a big fan. I love Yozakura family. Big two thumbs up from me. I am such a proud papa to see this finally animated. Big fan. Really loved it. Just wonderful stuff. I think the voice acting's phenomenal. I think a lot of the art style's great. Really, like, even improves upon the way the manga looks. It's same art style, but, like, really just makes it more satisfying to look at. Even the storyboarding and stuff is great. Like, I just love it. I think it's a delight to watch. Big fan. Like, it's just goofy, silly, spy fun. It just works on every level, in my opinion. Like, it's not for everybody, I don't think, but for me, I just love it. It's got everything I really like about manga. It's got the goofiness, and it's got the really compelling story with the great characters and fun character dynamic. So yeah, great stuff. Big fan. All right, next up is the Spice and Wolf reboot. The Merchant Meets the Wise Wolf. Is that it? Merchant Meets the Wise Wolf? Whatever. I am not someone who's familiar with the original Spice and Wolf, so I basically went into this with zero pretense or anything like that. No pretenses, just I was gonna see what I was gonna get, and I actually thought it was all right. Like, I'm not particularly attached to it by any means. I didn't find it to be amazing. Like, there's a lot of, like, economics talk that I'm not super interested in, but, like, I can appreciate. I did study economics in college, so I sort of get it. But the thing that I think you really take away from the Spice and Wolf as a whole is, I think, the dynamic between Lawrence and Holo, which I think is pretty solid. Like, I think it's a great dynamic they have. I think they might get they might be a little too close from early on. Like, it kind of feels like they're as close as they were in episode 25 in episode, like, 3 or 4. So I think that feels a little bit out of place sometimes, but you do, like, see a lot of the trials and tribulations of their relationship and, like, the ups and downs they go through. And every time that does happen, you see them come out of those trials and tribulations with a stronger relationship than they had before. Like, you can tell that they've come to understand each other a little better, and they, like, recognize that, at least for the time being, their goals align. So yeah, overall, I think it's a fairly enjoyable watch. It's nice and, like, comfortable. It's very slow paced, but intentionally so. So I think that provides its own element of charm. It's pretty light and easygoing, which has its own charm to it, right? Obviously I'm someone who usually prefers a lot of like fantasy elements or like very heavy dramatic stuff. Like, I'm all about the Black Clovers, the One Piece, the whole 9 yards. But I can appreciate something like this for what it is, and I can understand the charm behind it as well, like the appeal of it, because the dynamic between the two main characters is it's a dynamic that I think kind of stands on its own and isn't really matched by a lot of other groups of two characters. It's pretty unique in that sense. Like, just what they have going on, like, they're very, comfortable back and forths. They have something good going on, for sure. So, yeah, and I think the world it builds is pretty complete. Like, you can kind of tell the author has, like, some sort of affection for, like, this old, almost, I guess, like, European kind of style of older sort of setting, because it's built really nicely. The world is built it feels very complete, and sort of like there's always stuff like sort of going on outside from the main characters. Like, you can kind of tell like all of it makes sense and like adds to our sort of, not necessarily our understanding, but like just our impression of the world overall. So yeah, enjoyable little watch. Fun 2-core. Season 2 coming up whenever. I'll be watching. Okay, I'm saving the 2-core sequel for the end. Let's move on to sequels. Shy! Season 2, happy to see this one back. This was... It really built... I think took this in the right direction for the most part. Because now I know Shy is like a big manga. I think there's like 200, almost 300 chapters out now. So it totally makes sense that we never really haven't gotten really deep into the stuff with Amadou with them yet. But introducing and then building onto the Mai, being sort of the big boss for this season, I think worked really well. Like, Shy feels like a very like sort of uplifting, almost perspective, like societal commentary for younger folks, right? Like, it presents angles that I think would, like, younger people would benefit to being exposed to, right? Like, characters who feel things that like aren't necessarily, things that a lot of their peers would be feeling, right? So like, but are definitely very real feelings. So it definitely deals a lot with human emotion and like the consequences of it, and like how it makes someone behave and how it makes them, like, various ways you deal with that, and in a way that like takes those superhero fantasy elements and really makes it into like this compelling, cute little watch. And I think Shy, like, her, again, she never, it's part of it, right? She can't really develop out of the shyness. That would defeat the purpose. But the way she does develop her character, like sort of gaining confidence little by little, taking the leadership role in the big mission, making these judgment calls on the fly to, deal with the situation as is necessary. Like, it is good growth for her. And these other various characters around to support her are very welcome presences. I think they're, for the most part, very like a charming little group. Obviously I'm partial to Lady Black. I think she's great. But yeah, like the angle that sort of spirals off from Ai's instruction, into Mai being introduced, and then that resolution, I think that was really fun, like really compelling between the backstory, like Mai's backstory, and then the sort of like how it all ended up resolving with I and Mai. I guess they combined or something, but Shy went into the dream, went to Mai's dream or whatever, and talked to Mai's consciousness, and I think it was really sweet. Like, obviously, I don't think this one doesn't really need to like make a lot of logical sense. I don't think it's not really this one's style. I think it was pretty good. Like, it was just, it has these like interesting characters that you wouldn't really see in a lot of other things. And it's obviously aimed toward a younger audience. Honestly, I think the world would just be a better place if more kids watch this show. Like, genuinely, that's the kind of show I think this is. Like, it just has a really positive, sweet message. And it all ends up with this, like, cute little happy ending. Power of friendship. It's sweet. It's got a compelling story. And even, like, beyond this, like, I think I'm probably gonna read the manga because I'm very curious what happens with the Ambabababas. The Amabaridudubus. You know, but yeah, like, I think it's just really, really nice. Like, I think as a character is a great addition to the squad. Just good superhero fun, you know, like, there are some dark things about it for sure. Like, a lot of what happens in Mai's past is no joke, but overall, I did properly enjoy this one. I thought it was some good fun. I just don't know what happened in those first couple episodes that didn't really mean anything. And, like, even that one girl was voiced by Yamane Aya in like episode 2 or whatever of this season. She did nothing. She was just there. Christ. But yeah, for the most part, I thought this was pretty good. So yeah. Very enjoyable. I think, like, it's got such a nice message. Like, Shy, I think, is a great character. Like, you know, especially, like, just as the lead, like, she's very clearly the one who, like, gets the most development. Like, she's obviously the focus, and the one who's, like, helping these other characters. Well, you know, sometimes, like, the big ones, you know, like, she's the one who's, like, usually helping these other characters figure things out, like the Shining Beacon, you know, like, kind of like the one, the previous hero of Japan, which is teased in this a little bit, and kind of, you know, tickling your balls a little bit. I want to know more about that. I do. But yeah, good stuff. I really like, I think Shy is a very fun watch, for sure. Alright, Nier Automata version 1.1a Part 2. I still haven't played Nier Automata, so I don't want to, like, you know, talk too much, because I don't really feel like I have the grounds to talk. I don't know how this compares to the game. I don't know if it even tells the same story at all. I'm assuming it does, but I don't know that. So, but I think as an anime, you know, just as, like, the adaptation, I think it was really strong. Voice acting's great. I think a lot of the action sequences are pretty top-notch, pretty good stuff. Very fun action sequences throughout, I think. And, you know, obviously, Hanae Natsuki voicing 9S. Whew. As always, that man kills it. So good. And, you know, finally getting to see some of the backstory, learning the truth behind the Yora project, like, a lot of good stuff behind this. I think the way it resolves could have made it a little more sense, but it was kind of interesting and, you know, very, very fitting of the world that had been established up to this point. It's like one of those things that really makes you, like, terrified for what the world's actually going to be like 9,000 years in the future. You know, like, it is completely beyond our imagination. But I think Nier Automata tells a pretty compelling story. I imagine it's better experienced in the games, because it does feel incomplete at times. It just doesn't feel like everything I want from it is there. So I'm definitely gonna go and play the game for sure. I own it already, so because I got it on sale, baby. But I'm definitely gonna go and play it because it deserves that. I think if you probably had already played the game and you come into this, like, kind of explaining a little retelling of it without all of the detail from the game, you probably got what you expected and what you were hoping for. I just think, as someone who hasn't played the game, it's just a little incomplete and I'm a little lost sometimes. And that's because I think even towards the end, when it is revealing a lot of stuff, it leaves it kind of, you know, vague. A lot of stuff ends up a little open-ended, like, they're just like, oh, you guys are sacrificial pawns, like, humanity's actually extinct, you're just supposed to, like, eventually be sacrificed if you were going rogue from the directives of the Yora project, whatever. Like, it definitely could have it'd probably need a little more time if it wanted to tell the complete, you know, really get everything across properly, but I think for what it was pretty enjoyable. Like, the voice acting, again, is top-notch. I think the animation's strong. A lot of the fight choreography in those last 2 episodes was great, especially the last one. Really fun fight choreography. And, you know, like, A2 kind of, like, proclaiming, like, I'm gonna carry on the feelings that I'm carrying on from my dead friends. that's okay. Whatever. You do you. It's all good. But yeah, I think it was pretty enjoyable. I just don't have the room to speak on it yet, like fully. You know, I don't want to like be like, oh, it was bad or good because I haven't played the game. I wanted to be able to compare it to the game. And that's why I played Ryza back when that anime came out. Because I'm not an idiot. I mean, I was enough of an idiot not to play Nier Automata between the last one and this one, but still. Alright, Cafe Terrace, the goddess, the Cafe Terrace and its goddesses. One of my sweet children, Cafe Terrace and its goddesses. I'm glad to have it back a year later. Nah, I love this. This is... It goes past the first 50-ish chapters where I was really, really liking Cafe Terrace, and kind of devolves into all the penis talk where I was kind of like, all right, I get it. You know, we're talking about Hayato's dick. It's cool. It's funny and all that. The penis bit is this close to being tired, but it never quite gets there, thankfully. Like, there's still a decent amount of, like, semi-compelling character work, like, between Riho dealing with her mom. I really like that angle, the Riho dealing with her parents. There's still Ami and her grandma. Finally, like, Ami gets a proper character moment. I like how that resolves as well, and like she tackles that issue. There's still a lot of not a lot. There's still a fair amount of like decent character angles like season 1 that I was so that I was glazing in season 1, right? But yeah, no, it just sort of devolves into like the sort of straight up shenanigans that Cafe Terrace has been doing a lot in the manga, basically since around chapter 50. And there's even, I don't really like how it ends because I know how the whole France angle resolves in the manga. It becomes a nothing burger, spoiler alert. Like, I don't like that that's how it ended with Oka going off to France because it's not long before she comes back at all. Maybe a few chapters. But there's not nearly as much of like the good character work as there was in the first season. So I don't think it's as strong overall. But if you are on board, like with, again, this is another one that kind of sets up who its characters are really early on. So you're kind of on board with it. And if you do like the characters, you'll probably enjoy, at least to some extent, the shenanigans. And the addition of the other 5 girls, I think, is pretty, like, it can be a little much. Because those, like, it's not like their personalities are really, and characters are really expanded on at all. They're just sort of there to be, you know, the sort of, the sort of evil twins of the main 5 girls. But then they're eventually just their own characters because they're not evil anymore. They're not on the side of the enemy. But they can be a little much at times, but I think overall they're fairly welcome. They definitely add something to the overall shenanigans and the dynamics between the characters. Like, you know, I like how Ririka is like always pushing Riho to do more, and like, you know, even there's some silliness with what's her face, like the character Ueshama voices, who I can't remember her name, but yeah, like there is like it's not bad. It's goofy shenanigans, but it delves much more into like the you know, weird shit. Like, there's a lot of talk about Hayato's dick in this season. And spoiler alert, it doesn't stop anytime soon in the manga. So it starts out being kind of goofy and fun, but then it's like, all right, you've talked about his dick a lot. And I don't know why I'm the one complaining, considering I talk about dicks like all the time. But like, you know, there is a point where it gets to be a little much. But I don't think it ever really crosses that barrier. It's just like kind of approaching it. So, but yeah, it's good fun. I do like Cafe Terrace. I'm a sucker for it, like I said. So, and then the last time I covered it, so I can't complain. And getting Cafe Terrace getting a season I didn't even expect in the first place. So, I can't complain that much. All right, Oshinoko season 2. Yeah, this part I remember in the manga being a huge drag, and turns out when you animate it fucking rules. No, this was yeah, they did a fucking phenomenal job with it. Maybe I was too close-minded 2 years ago or whatever, like 2.5-ish years ago when I first read this part of the manga, but this was really good. Like, it's well animated, it's well storyboarded. Like, I think the concept is a little approaching the ridiculous, like, act unironically ridiculous, right? Like, where you have an in-universe manga getting developed into a stage play, and the characters in Oshi no Ko are being characters from the in-universe manga Tokyo Blade, and it's getting a little meta for me, but it does work. Like, it's very good, and I think like the way they implement it into everything, like we see basically everything that goes into the creative process. Not everything, but like a lot of the struggles that the creative team endure and persevere through in order to make the Tokyo Blade stage play into something awesome. And even the actors, like as they're acting during the first showing of the Tokyo Blade play, you see a lot of their feelings come out. Like we see Akane, Kana, Aqua, a bunch of the other side fuckers who don't contribute anything other than like kind of cool backstories and like one cool moment. But they are like those cool moments. You're like, whoa, dude! Like, holy shit! I didn't know you were interesting. Sort of. It's good, man. It's like the way they animate it is phenomenal. Like it's just enjoyable. It's so fun. Like this, especially like. The way they animate it and the voice cast really bring this show to life and elevate the source material in such a cool way. Like, I can't tell you, like, between, like, you know, especially a lot of the girls, like, are phenomenal. Like, Kana's voice actress, Ruby, Akane, fucking, like, they just, and especially, like, the expressiveness of the characters, too, it just brings everything to life. It's so fun to watch. And, oh, man, like I said, the animation's great as well. Like, there's a lot of really cool moments, and like a lot of the stuff you see from like early on when it's kind of like slow, and you know, we have the original mangaka of Tokyo Blade being like, this place sucks, this script is terrible, you have to let me write it, even though I'm already crazy overworked publishing weekly and my editor is gonna kill me. But thankfully we have the Age of 30 is in Demand lady who saves the day and like plays her part as well. Like, yeah, it's just really enjoyable. And then, you know, you get into the second part of the season where they go back to, I guess, was it Miyazaki or whatever, to do the Bikomachi music video, and they, you know, Ruby discovers the like sensei's you know, the doctor's old fucking thing, and there's like some tension building there, and the little girl shows up for the first time, who I still don't like that she's there, but whatever, I'll get over it eventually. Yeah, like, no, they did a phenomenal job with this part of Oshi no Ko. Like, I just remember in the manga being such a drag, and it just fucking rules in this. It's so fun. They just so succeed. Like, this anime just so succeeds at bringing Oshi no Ko to life in such a fun way. Like, I just can't say enough good things about the way they've adapted the manga. It's fantastic. You know, obviously Akasaka had plenty to say about like various different manga like perspectives and stuff like that. Like, you can tell between, like, especially early on in this season when we're learning about the perspectives of like Abiko sensei and like how she's dealing with the pressure and the being overworked, and like how the Age of 30's in Demand girl, whose name I'm going to learn right now. Yeah, Yoriko sensei. And like, she was the mangaka of Love Now, which got into that shitty live action adaptation in the last season. Like, how like their little bickering spat in one of the episodes early on, like they finally let out a lot of those pent up feelings. That was a really nice little scene. And you like kind of like, you know, the pressure of being a mangaka, like releasing and publishing new chapters weekly, like there's a lot of pressure there, and like you have to talk with your editor about a lot of this stuff, publishing rights, the whole 9 yards, and like how manga should be, you know, depending on the material of it and like what kind of style it is, how it should be worked into a stage play that only lasts for so long. It's genuinely interesting stuff if you can find it in you to be interested, right? Like, if you are interested in this kind of thing, which obviously I am, considering I'm like talking about like 30 some odd anime in this roundup. I think it's good. It's really enjoyable. I think the voice acting's phenomenal. I'm just repeating myself at this point, but it's really, really good. I don't know if Kaguya-sama had a shitty stage play at one point, but Akasaka had a lot to say about manga becoming stage plays, and we got to see all of it. And I actually think it works pretty well. Like, and the fact that we do get to see all of it makes the end result feel that much more satisfying, right? Like, we see all, like, this is the result of the work that scriptwriter guy and Abiko sensei put in together in their collaborative little effort. That was a sweet little scene. Like, just lot of really good stuff this season. Like, yeah, great stuff. I'm really enjoying watching Oshinoko, and I'm glad they are clearly so passionate about making this anime awesome. It's great. All right. That time I got reincarnated as a slime, season 3. What's your favorite episode of Tensura, Billy? I really like the one where they talk about building a coliseum for a long time. I think the critiques about this season being kind of slow and boring and a lot of talking are probably valid. But honestly, I kind of love it. I've talked about this before in previous roundups, but this is one of those where you're like, if you're watching, this is the set, we're up to 72 episodes of this show now. If you're watching still, you're locked in. It's because you like what this show has going on, right? Like the building of the Tempest Kingdom and of the Kingdom of Monsters, and like seeing their working relationships with other kingdoms and how they develop, and how Rimuru deals with various people in power and all of this stuff, like, and how he's like gonna draw in and improve the economy and draw in folks and adventurers from other kingdoms and the whole 9 yards. Like, that's what it's all about, because there are some, like, Slime doesn't slack on the action scenes, right? Like, Rimuru and Hinata's fight is by no means bad. It's not probably it's Slime like Tensura's best fight, because I think some of this fights from the previous season were probably a little better overall, but it doesn't slack. It's not like it's bad or like clunky or anything. It's still good. So it's just that that's pretty much the only real fight from this whole season, and like the whole second half is dedicated to the festival, which is fun to watch in a different way, right? So you have to like kind of, you have to go in with the mindset that you are appreciating Tensura for like the whole wide range of characters who are all coming in, and Rimuru interacts with them in his own unique way, and like how he's like letting a bunch of different characters handle different aspects of the festival. And we finally see the kids he taught in season 1 make it to the kingdom and have a grand old time. Like, that was nice and cute. And Rimuru and Hinata even putting aside their differences and learning, not even putting aside their differences, just like coming to an understanding is great. Very nice to see that, especially because that was a point of tension for such a long time. But yeah, just like, it's just nice and like comforting. Like, it's almost like Spice and Wolf in that way, if I can make that comparison. Like, it's comfortable and slow paced in its own way, and it is comfortable to a certain extent, right? Like, it's just a comfortable watch. Like, and there is some like things that they add. Like, I think the addition of the hero boy, I forget his name, like the lightning speed hero or whatever. Like, it's a goofy little addition because he's like, I haven't done anything, but all of these people are rallying around me, and I can't let them down. But it's a goofy little addition, and I kind of like it does add things that are fun, and like kind of it helps build the world around that more than just the monster kingdom and their allies, right? So, and we finally see like the queen of the elf queen of the nation that the blondie is from, and the whole 9 yards. Like, it's good fun, I think. Like, even the peacekeeping meetings from like early on in the third season, like the first core of the third season, like, I don't think they're that bad. Like, there's some war strategy and like preparing to deal with the church's troops, and like there's that weird twist with like all of the head of the church guys being fucked up and evil, which I hope more will come of that in the future, because we did get season 4 announced for this. I think the meeting with the people from the mountain and the train and stuff was talking about the train through the mountain, coming around the mountain when he comes. I think that was this season as well. I think that's pretty good. Like, it's a good world that Slime has built, right? That Tensura has built for itself. It's very wide and expansive, and there's a lot going on. But I don't think it ever feels like it never feels like you wouldn't be able to keep track of it all, right? So I appreciate that about it. Like, because if you made the conscious effort to be conscious of it all, to like know exactly what's happening in various kingdoms and what's going and who's doing what, you could do that without exploding your brain. So That's good. I actually really like Tensura. I think it's good fun. It has that sense of silliness that we'd expect from a lot of some modern anime, and even that it's had since the beginning, right? Like even like Valdora, I think still has his funny moments in this season. Like the characters you would expect to add that element of silliness, add the element of silliness that's on the periodic table, baby. But yeah, I liked it. And I don't think I don't think it makes any real big missteps by any means. Like, cause it from the beginning, it really has just been about building the kingdom of monsters. And even if that's in a slow way, that's just gradually building the economy, like with the festival or with, I guess the festival is a pretty big move for building the economy, but like, and then, striking friendly deals with people in charge of other nations and stuff like that. Like, I think it's good fun. Like, it helps you get invested in the world, so I like Tensura. I think it's good fun. Can't wait for season 4. I don't know if I'll still be doing these by that time, but maybe I will. Who knows? All right, that's all for this roundup. Next season, I got a lot of good stuff. We got like Maj Lumiere, we got Shangri-La Frontier with Elisa opening. God rest my soul. We got Bleach. I won't be covering, but we got ReZero. We got fucking Blue Lock. We got Blue Lock's Peak Blue Lock rather. I already said Maj Lumiere. Blue Box, Don. Great stuff happening next season. As for now, I am approximately 16 hours away from the final chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, and I think that society as a whole will just be improved after 11 a.m. tomorrow. Like, it'll be that moment where I like open the door, step outside, and be like, it's so bright. I never knew I could feel this free. Sorry, Gege. Try again next time, bud.